Greetings. I wanted to talk today about rowing, interval rowing. Now, if you don't have a rowing machine, don't have access to one, they're not really that expensive. If you commit yourself to just an excellent cardio sort of workout, there are three mono movements, just single repetitive cardio sort of movements. There's running, there's biking, there's rowing. Those are the three major ones. You just repeat it with that same singular action over and over and over again. So rowing has the advantage of using upper body, middle body, lower body. There's a pull with the upper. There's the hinge movement back and forth for the middle body, the core. And there's just what the legs are doing, bumping in and out. So those are useful things. Running, a lot of core involved, more than you might superficially think. Running is basically falling and then moving your legs forward and catching. So it's a little bit of a climb. You've fallen and you've got to remove yourself back to a non-falling position. Bike is good. It can be a lot of weight on the legs. There's something like the air bike where you can use your upper body as well. That's a little more rare. Rowing is the one that really, it's a little more common than the air bike, and it gets the full body involved. There's no push, but there's the meaningful pull. So rowing, very useful, very productive. If you do 10 minutes, you do 20 minutes, you do 30 minutes of rowing, you go a certain distance, it's a slog. It's like running on a track, or it's not very interesting. I like to optimize to get the biggest bang for my time and for my effort, and that's going to be intervals, an intense period of work, and then a limited amount of rest, and repeat it. The rest is the interval, technically. People think that it's the work, but the interval is the interval of rest, just as a technical point. So here's a protocol that I have found really productive, and I made it up because it suits my psychology. Is there something better? Oh yeah, sure there is, but this is good enough. And it is 250 meters and a minute rest. Repeat. So I'll row at the same pace. So I'm going to row, my pattern is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And as I've said before, when you start, you can do it more than once in a week. But when you're doing it for real, intervals take a lot out of you. They're taxing. Once a week works for me. I mean, I made progress every week. And if you're making progress, you're doing it right, in the sense that you're not doing it wrong. If you're getting return, then you're being effective. You may not be efficient. There may be a better way of doing it. But the way you are doing it gets you the effect. And that's half the battle, more than half the battle. Some people don't mind being inefficient. They waste a lot of time and effort, but they got the result. It's fine. It's almost a philosophical idea. You find your pace, and we'll talk about that. And then now I found my pace. I'm going to go, call it a minute. It's going to be 60 seconds at that pace. I rest a minute. I do it a second time. I rest, third, fourth time. Boom, I'm done. That last set should be pretty tough. Next time, next week, next 2 days from now, maybe the next day, it's going to be not 4 intervals, but 5. Same pace, 60 seconds. We've talked about this before, but I wasn't quite formal about it. You're going to hone in on how you feel. You can't only go by your feel, but you have to listen to how you feel. Up to 8. And that might be 3 or 4 weeks later, maybe 5 weeks. So I was going at 60. Now I'm going to knock it down to 59. We've talked about this. And then I'm going to go through my cycle, and then I'm going to knock it down. There's a point where you can't really do more. So what you do is you periodize it. Say you get down to 50, which is attainable for a lot of people. Rowing is a size-based sport. It's a weight class sport. So the smaller you are, the lighter you are, you don't have that mass to get that flywheel turning quite as much. That's why they're weight classes. But let's say you get down to pretty good, 50. And the 8th one, that's 2,000 meters you've gone with some rest. You're going to make it easier now. You're at 50. Bring it back to 52. Periodize it. And now do the cycle, and then down to 51, and then 50. And maybe you'll be able to get to 49. I got to 48 for 8 bouts. It's pretty good. Not amazing, but it's pretty good. Especially, older guy. There it is. So that is a protocol. Now you can do this for running. I've talked about that. But this is just the rowing. Maybe you have one that you bought in a bout of enthusiasm. I like abbreviated workouts. It'll give you plenty of time to recover. If you have been intense, you've sent the signal. Tonight, the hormones will come out and do their job. The longer you sleep, the more cycles of sleep you go through, the more opportunity your hormones have to get to work. Recovery is absolutely vital. It's just absolutely vital that you do it. Otherwise, you're overtraining. So look, it doesn't have to be 250 meters. It can be 200 meters. It can be whatever you can do the first time in a minute. That's going to be the distance that you go. I chose 250. It's a reasonable number. One of the points that I make is you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have the best protocol. You don't have to have the best diet. You need to have a pretty good. Pretty good. And that is, ooh, that's pretty good. It's an A. An A is technically excellent, but there's a corrupted grading curve. So most people, they should do not their best, because that's kind of kindergarten-y, but you should do a really good effort. Looking at it honestly, you should be able to walk away and say, yeah, I did okay. You'll know. There's something called P factor, permission to fail. It's a permission factor, but it's failure. It's all the excuses you use about why you couldn't do a better job. Once you identify that, that excuse doesn't work anymore. You saw what you were doing with it, and the ingenuity that people come up with to come up with another excuse in their secret, their heart of hearts, they come up with these secret excuses. Well, we're ingenious, but eventually you strip yourself down and it's just you did the best you could, or you elected not to. You just didn't feel like it and gave yourself permission to not do it. And it was no excuse, no lie. You just didn't want to do it. It was too hard. There's nothing shameful in that. You're finding your limits. You're finding what your character is. So I'll leave it at that. Rowing intervals. Have a great day.